How's it going, everyone? This is Chase, and today we're going to be talking about, is airport security racist? That's a good question. You hear a lot of stories and you honestly hear a lot of jokes about quote unquote random searches. And the random searches always typically find the people, of certain nationalities, certain races, and it's a good question. Let's bring it up. Is it a problem that we should solve? Is it right in being kind of racist? Is it not? Is there no justification for it? Well, let's talk about it. Let's get into it. The whole reason I'm talking about it today is I came across an article and it's by Nico. I probably would butcher his last name, so I will refrain from saying it. But Nico here Nico here says he used to love flying and everything, and now that he starts blaming Trump in his article, but he starts blaming now that Trump's in office that he fears flying. He fears random searches. He fears it as an invasion of his privacy. Now he's talking basically out of the Philippines mainly. And I'm not sure. I did hear there were some problems with the Philippines security wise when Trump went there. But he says Trump made a big impact on the airport security and, random searches basically in the Philippines. Well, I'm not sure about the Philippines, but I know in the US, look, it's been going on since 9/11. Let's be real. This security crackdown, the quote unquote racism, it's been happening since 9/11. Trying to blame Trump for it, I think, is a stretch. And I mean, I have friends of multiple nationalities, and they talk about being searched randomly, quote unquote randomly, and it hasn't changed for them at all just because Trump is president. I'll get more into that in a little bit later, but he basically goes into how he's after the third time of him being patted down thoroughly, he was on the verge of tears, and I do sympathize, with the guy, I and many others don't have to normally go through that. I have been randomly searched before. I do not get randomly searched every time, so I can definitely feel the frustration of someone being randomly searched every time. That's, I can feel sympathy and I can understand where he's coming from about this. However, let's talk about why it's happening. Let's talk about the reasons why it possibly could be happening. Obviously, 9/11 had a big impact on the U.S. and whether, how we checked people as they came through security getting onto an airplane. Obviously, it's a big deal. It's a big deal what people have on them going onto an airplane, and rightfully so. They kind of started singling out certain nationalities of potential threats. Well, it's a struggle for some people. Some people don't have to deal with it, and maybe that's why it's not as much of an issue as it is. But let's talk about my friend's story. I have a pretty close friend. He's multinational. If you just looked at him, you'd think he's Middle Eastern, but he's kind of more than that. He calls himself a mutt, mixed of very many different nationalities. But if you were to look at him, you were to think he's Middle Eastern, and that's what airport security thinks. He's Middle Eastern, and he said he's told me every time he goes to the airport, he's randomly searched, and right as he brought that up, I kind of started poking. I was like, oh, okay, you're randomly searched every time. Does that get frustrating? Like, are you upset with that? And he was like, "Are you kidding me? No, I'm fine with it." He said, and so this is quoting him. He said, "I don't blame them." He literally said, "I don't blame them." And he went into saying, that people of his nationality and people of his look are more of a risk. And he just told me that, and he was like, I can see why they do it, and if that means that I have to go through this so that we can have a fraction more safety within the airline business, then fine. He's happy to pay that burden. Obviously, some other people, such as this article, it isn't the same for them feelings wise, and that's rough. I wish more people were as accepting as that. But let's talk about what other countries do. There's a famous example that people like to throw around, and there's an Israeli airport, and they have one of the best, quote unquote, some of the best security when it comes to the airline business in the world. They have the fewest incidents. They statistically, they're just like top ranking security wise. And what do they do? What do they do in Israel to try and keep security, locked down? They racial profile. And people speculate whether it's the racial profiling or other measures that they take to keep them safer. But it's hard to imagine that it's just, some slightly more staffing than the average security, or the slightly more lengthy checkout process or check-in process when it comes to checking through security. It's hard to believe that that's all, it's all other reasons and not racial profiling. They're in a pretty conflict-ridden part of the world, and I can see how racial profiling would be an effective way of filing through people, saving time on their end of checking people. So I mean, you can definitely argue. And here's the article. This talks about this is the New York Times as well. They talk about basically the reasons, what they do differently, yada yada, and they get to the end and they say basically, we would, if we were to implement their style in the U.S., we would have to hire more people to do it and such, and that the racial profiling is not necessarily an indication of like the safety. You can read the article; it'll be posted below. But what it gets down to is, especially in America, the principle of it. Is it right to racial profile people? Do we, as a Western civilization, do we think it's right to racial profile, even if it does mean, safer flights? And this gets into a very touchy subject, especially because I haven't had to personally deal with a bunch of random searches. Sure, I've been randomly searched, and sure, it's inconvenient. Have I ever felt like I've been violated from it or invasion of privacy? Well, no. You're getting on a freaking airplane. I always, expect for them to know every little item I'm bringing onto the plane. So no, it's not an invasion of privacy to me at all. The pat downs, whatever, they can do whatever they want. I have nothing to hide, and I don't really care. As long as they are keeping the safety of our airplanes, they can do whatever they want, other than extreme measures, which that's very rare occasions in which you actually get bad, like when they cross the line, bad behavior, such as like women getting touched inappropriately and so forth. Usually they have women done by other women, so that's less of an issue altogether. Regardless, I'm getting off topic. No, personally, I don't find an issue when people thoroughly go through my person and my belongings. I think when you get on an airplane, you lose the right to that privacy to keep everyone else safe. And so, personally, if it's to keep the security of the airlines, I think it's in some degree necessary for racial profiling, just because of incidents in the past, especially the direct past. And let's be honest, who's most likely to commit a major act of terrorism in our country would be people that side with ISIS or other extremist groups in the Middle East. Those are the people most likely, and typically those people are of a similar nationality / race. And you can call me racist, you can call me this, you can call me that, but at the end of the day, we gotta keep people safe. But you can't. No one wants to wait through 2 or 3 hours of security. I've also done that, and let me tell you, if I went through a thorough pat down versus waiting 2 or 3 hours more in security, I'll take the thorough pat down. I'll take it for the team. I don't care, as long as we can get through security and I can go and sit in the freaking chair and wait for my flight in peace. And so it's mainly a thing of, we got to get through people, as much people as we can. And if we're going to do that, we got to take some shortcuts. And if those some shortcuts to make the lines keep moving happen to be racial profiling, to some degree, I think it's necessary. Now, can it go overboard? Can it get extreme? Certainly. There's extremes in every case in which things go too far. But in general, you have to keep that in mind, just as a safety measure, and it really sucks, because I know many people, they've been U.S. citizens their whole life. What reason do they have to be terrorists? And it's not fair to those people. I'll be honest, it's not fair, and I agree that it's not fair. But sadly, that's the world we live in. That's the kind of world we live in, is where certain people of the world hate us more and want us dead more than other people of the world. And so if you're looking for the certain people that hate you the most and want you dead the most, they're going to share some characteristics in the way they look, because they come from the same part of the world. And other people, bystanders that aren't a part of that, well, they just kind of take the brunt end of the stick. They kind of get the bad end of the deal. And sometimes there's issues. There's several issues in which you just have to deal with the consequences of other people's actions. And this is one of those cases, I believe, and to some degree it's necessary, but that doesn't mean I know it doesn't suck for a lot of people. I have a lot of sympathy for them, and the constant struggle they have to go through when they go through security. That can't be fun. But we have to all agree to an understanding of why that is. And that's what I'm basically doing right now. But let me know in the comments below, do you agree that it's a necessary thing to do to try and keep safety in the airports, or do you disagree? Do you think it is racist? I guess we all agree that it's racist, but do you agree that it's not right, it should not be done, and we should profile people equally no matter what, and possibly lose a little safety to that? You have to accept that as a possibility. But leave in the comments below what you think. Subscribe if you want more content similar to this one. Thanks. Bye.